Ladies and gentlemen, here he is. Woo! The sensation, Jason Gavon!
Danmark har fået en ny verdensmester. Mikkel Kessler. He's the fucking champion of the world. Mikkel, man.
Adonis Stevenson, piece of shit.
No, I think Razado, good boy. Razado is a good boy.
I've become a massive international superstar. It's as simple as that.
I eat your asshole alive, you bitch. Scared of the real man. I'll fuck you till you love me, faggot.
I'm going to physically shoot David Hay. He fucking glassed me. He glassed me. Derek, cool down.
I'm Shannon Briggs. I'm hard to kill. I'm the black team with the ball. I'm hard to fucking kill.
Well, I believe Christopher can take a punch. I'm very good at math and looking at a fighter and seeing what his abilities are. I can't see that Golovkin has anything like Christopher's speed, his power, his punching ability, his hand speed, his foot movement. I don't see that from a calculating point of view. I don't see that he has anything like that. So then it's going to come down to heart.
I spoke to Joe Gallagher, they don't want to fight Carl Frampton, and the bottom line is, no disrespect to Prosper Anchor, these guys aren't good enough to face Carl Frampton.
I'm the best heavyweight champion in the world. I'm half WBC with me. I'm undefeated champion, undisputed champion. I want who next?
He's got my dinyl-ribonucleic acid.
Undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Who next?
I love boxing, Sam. It's as simple as that.
Welcome everyone to the 137th edition of the Nuthouse podcast, brought to you by BoxSalam.com. I'm your host, Andy Patterson. With me this week I've got Alex Morris, Paul Webb, Abner Smith and Tommy Allen. Apologies about no show yesterday. Unfortunately Alex had a family function to go to, and I think we all decided just to basically take the day off, but we decided to do the show today. And anyway, as you know, there's not really much action to discuss other than just a couple of fight results to go through. Yevgeny Kretov went 8 rounds with Nick Brinson. Finally getting a stoppage. It was somewhat controversial actually, because it did look like that Brinson was actually looking to take a knee, and the referee waved off the fight, and obviously Brinson's not happy about it. One of the things I did notice is, I've not seen the fight, I've just seen the stoppage, but the fact is that some of the American press who actually watched the show weren't really that impressed with Kretov, so I'll need to get onto that fight and check it out. But we talking point later on the show is actually as well as about one of the scorecards from one of the judges, which we'll touch upon. And one fight from Thailand, Punglang Sorsingyu had a 2-round knockout victory against Rai Aikuo for a vacant WBO bantamweight title. Pretty vicious knockout. I did think he got caught behind the back of the head. I think it was a right hand, left hook that finally kind of laid the Japanese fighter out. So that's really it this week. For the weekend fight, guys. Just briefly moving on to some of the news. Tommy, mate, still no announcement on this Cotto Canelo fight. Seems to be a few sticking issues in the contract. Seems to be the rematch clause, mate. I don't know how long this shit's been going on for, but it's at high time this fight finally got made.
That's pretty much, that's nearly 2 years I've been negotiating it now. They've had stop-start times and that, so according to De La Hoya, it's very close and it's just a few minor sticking points, but they really need to get it sorted. It's, it's fucking, the fight's going to be in November.
21st, aye.
Isn't the sticking point the rematch clause, apparently? Cotto wants it somewhere, and Canelo wants it somewhere else or something. It's really just getting down to the nitty-gritty petty things at the moment.
See, I think what it's down to, mate, I think it's actually come down to the wording of this rematch clause. Now, rematch clause, you can see, I can understand, you hear Eddie Hearn talking about it, for instance, that you'll get I think they were talking about Brooke Rios, for instance. I think there was a sticking issue about the rematch clause or whatever, but it seems, I think it's sounding like here from this legal advisor of Cotto, it's saying that if the fight is any good, a rematch will happen, so there's no reason to attach the clause in the contract. So I kind of read that to say, right, okay, if I win in a shit fight, there'll be no rematch, but if it's an okay fight or whatever it is, if I win easily, then I'll give you a rematch. That's the way I'm reading it anyway.
It's, it's standard things though, isn't it? I mean, like you say, there should be a rematch if Cotto loses, he's probably going to demand a rematch anyway. He's the champion, and I take it's for his belt, so he's got the right to a rematch anyway. That's pretty much standard practice. So I don't really get what all this, what the issue is really. Like you say, maybe it is just the wording and the semantics of it all, and it's really, what we've come to expect of Cotto. I know we're not the biggest fans of Cotto over here, but fucking hell, just get it done. People really want to see this fight. People have pretty much booked up tickets and hotels and flights and all the rest of it to go and see this fight because they assume it's happening, and for all we know, it could get cancelled next week.
What about you, Adam, mate? I mean, it looks like your Golovkin trip's going to fall through. Would you sign up for this one?
Well, actually, the discussion about an Adam Smith international boxing trip this year started with Cotto Canelo, but because they've been pissing about, I've moved on to Triple G and got a few things priced up. Could be having a fellow traveller let me down, so that might go up in smoke. But yeah, it's disappointing. This is a big fight. A lot of people are looking forward to it. I'm lost in the belt madness, but if it's not for a title, there's not necessarily a need for a rematch. And my question would be, I don't know the answer, if it's a rematch clause, assuming that there's no belts, who would have the power to trigger it? Who is the A side in your guys' eyes? I don't know.
Cotto.
Okay.
Cotto's got to be the A side, hasn't he?
You think, Paul, he's definitely got to be the A side. Although his reign at 154 is poor. What the fuck? Paul's on his phone, I think. You there, Paul?
Yeah, I'm here, guys.
Is that you pressed your dial there?
No, I don't know. It's just I heard that beat, but I don't know where it's coming from. No, Cotto's definitely the A side. He's been on more pay-per-views. He's headlined more shows. So he does, and he also holds the lineal title. So he is certainly the A side in that particular fight. The rematch clause, I find rematch clauses very confusing sometimes because certain fights just don't need them, because how can you set what's going to happen next? If it's a mandatory challenge for a standard world title, then it makes complete sense. The champion's got to protect his belt. But in this case, the belt is sort of a side thing. It's actually about the two guys fighting. The fact that there'll be a title on the line is not irrelevant, but it's certainly not the thing that we're all looking forward to seeing.
Don't you think it matters to Canelo? Canelo wants
it does, because it's a lineal middleweight title, for Christ's sake. It's one of the oldest lineages in boxing just now.
It matters from that, but like I said, if it was Cotto fighting Gill for the lineal middleweight title, it makes more sense because, there's one side is much bigger than the other. In this case, they're very evenly matched in terms of profile. Cotto is the A side, but it's not like he's fighting just some random mandatory. And if the fight is good enough, the problem is, look at Carl Froch's Lucian Butte. They had a rematch clause signed. That was a big sticking point of getting the fight on. Now, Lucian Butte had every right to call a rematch in that fight. Who on earth would want to see it? So let's just say Canelo goes in and absolutely bombs Cotto out there in 3 rounds. It probably won't happen, but let's just say he does. And you're giving Cotto the right to say, let's do this again, when no one wants to see it. So I know that it's always going to be a sticking point. In certain fights, it has caused problems. But Mayweather-Pacquiao didn't have a rematch clause, and it didn't matter. I don't see why both sides are so desperate to make that happen.
Well, money, really, isn't it? I mean, if you wanted an answer to it, that's the thing. That this fight and the biggest sticking point so far is probably the money, and who's the A side of it and who's going to get the most money. And the rematch is basically going to earn them more money. Like you say, it could be a situation where Cotto gets bombed out or Canelo gets bombed out. Personally, I think it's going to be a bit of a mismatch. I think Canelo's just going to absolutely destroy him. I don't think Cotto's really done much in the past, 2, 3, 4 years. He beat Martinez, and yeah, fair enough, I thought Martinez was going to destroy him, but we pretty much, and this isn't excuses. Martinez was a cripple at the time. Let's get that out there right now. Martinez was a cripple, and Cotto beat a cripple, and that's the only decent win he's had for a very long time, and Canelo's going to destroy him. So I can see why he wants the rematch clause, to ensure that he's getting a second payday.
I'm going out on a limb here, actually, and as much as a Cotto hater I've been called in the past and stuff, I'm actually thinking he's going to pull this off.
I see Canelo doing the damage in this fight, to be honest. Did any of you see the Austin Trout interviewing boxing scene during the week? He was talking about, obviously, comparing the two fighters he's been with him, and he was saying Canelo's a lot stronger and a lot better than that than Cotto was. I agree with Alex. He's not really done much the last few years. I too picked Martinez to win, but obviously Martinez has had the injuries, but this is really the first top level fighter. in and around his peak that Cotto's going to face for a long time. I think Canelo might actually stop him late in the fight.
Who was Cotto's last peak opponent that he fought? Pacquiao? I mean, Trout?
You've got to include Trout, surely.
Yeah, Austin Trout, yeah.
I think the reason why this is so interesting is because a lot of people obviously are picking sides, but there's no clear definitive you think that this is going to happen because of this. It's a very 50-50 fight in terms of there are a lot of people are picking on both sides. I think Canelo's going to win personally. I think he'll be too big, too strong and have too much. But on the other side, you could equally see Miguel Cotto if he sticks to his boxing rather than stand in the middle of the ring, and like he has showed that he can do in the past. I mean, he could outbox Canelo. I think it's a very, very interesting matchup.
If you look at it since 2009, you can see that Cotto's fought three live body opponents. 2009 he fought Pacquiao. He's then fought Mayweather 2012, and obviously if the Canelo fight comes off, that'll be the third one. In between that, it's just a shot guys and injured guys.
Ricardo Mayorga.
Yuri Foreman had one leg, Margarito had one eye, Delvin Rodriguez, well...
Yeah, Delvin Rodriguez, exactly.
Dog shit, and Gil's obviously, there's a lot of stuff being said about the weight for that fight, so... When Cotto has stepped up the last few years against top guys like, obviously, Pacquiao, Mayweather and Trout, he's been thoroughly beaten, hasn't he? I still maintain though, as Cotto can move him about the ring. I think he can give him better angles. You know, Canelo comes forward straight lines. I just don't think Canelo can actually have the gas to deal with him. But then Cotto hasn't really got that good a gas tank. Maybe it just comes down to the fact, Tommy, is if the fight goes a wee bit longer, you might get the two of them ending up in the centre ring banging it out. And if you know what happens if it comes to that, who might come out of that one the winner?
What weight will this before that?
155 catch weight.
I mean, how the fuck can we talk about lineal middleweight titles and they're fighting 1 pound above the weight? It's ridiculous. Yeah. It's just making a mockery of the sport and the history of what Andy said. One of the oldest lineages, or whatever bloody word is, in the sport, and they're just making a complete mockery of it.
Thing is, it's not a negative for either side. I suppose Canelo would prefer it to be slightly heavier, but Canelo is very happy to make that weight. It's not as though he's being dragged down to it. So, as much as realistically it should be at 160. It's not an uneven playing field at 155, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm agreeing. I'm the same. I think it's still a good fight, regardless of the weight. I mean, I also agree with Adam, though, it's still got to be the full weight. It doesn't matter. I mean, we're going to get a good fight. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at the end of November, it's looking fucking shit hot by the way. You've got Golovkin and Lemieux coming up. You've got this fight potentially. And then just recently you had the fight with Gregor Drozad and Junior Makubu getting announced at cruiserweight. And that's going to be a solid card in Russia.
I think the old McDonald-Kameda fight is going to be a good rematch, and obviously I'll keep banging on about Yamanaka Moreno. Bantamweight's looking good. Some good fights ahead. We've just got to get through the next, 6 weeks of shite.
Yep. Hopefully Chocolatito's on that paper, that undercard. Was it Golovkin?
But yeah, Brian Valoria is the name I've heard today.
Fuck's sake.
It did start, it was Segura, I believe, to start with the rumours, but strong rumours Brian Valoria today, and then Stavern and... Is it Ortiz? Is the heavyweight called Luis Ortiz?
That one's been mooted, but I've heard...
Mooted, yeah.
We heard, who was it? Stavern say that nothing's been talking about her? I don't know.
I won't be surprised if Stavern didn't turn up to that, but I think Chocolatito against Valoria is a goer.
Well, one thing they better do if that fight does happen is Ortiz better get target tested.
Well, we need some bloody testing.
Just while you're speaking there, Alex...
He needs treadmill testing.
Just moving on slightly, Adam, your man, Carol Froch. Now, you actually had a beautiful eulogy for Carol Froch's career a couple of weeks back that's now consigned to File Z of our archives because it was a record problem.
Yeah, I think someone was purposely against me on that evening.
Well, he's now stated in the BBC radio interview that he says never say never when discussing the likelihood of a future fight. He says he still feels capable and he can still do it physically, but the desire's just not there. He said anything can happen. He said he may wake up one morning and fancy a fight.
Right. I don't think that, it would send shockwaves through our millions of fans if I were to criticise, 2-0 by the way, if I was to criticise Matchroom and Carl Froch within 2 weeks of each other. But we've been in limbo with Froch's career. He could have said this statement 10, 12, 11, how many ever months ago you want. He's been playing by this mantra. If something good comes up, I'll put my name on the dotted line. I criticised Eddie Hearn because the week of Froch retiring, within 48 hours, he was saying, "Oh well, never say never," and I blamed Eddie Hearn for that. But if Froch is saying it as well, it's poor. It's poor the way they've played it. Is it because Groves is in the news this week? Is it because he's spent a few quid at the weekend and wants to replace it? I'm just a bit annoyed, to be honest, because it's what do you want? Do you want titles? No, he's given up. Do you want the money? I doubt he needs it after Wembley. Do you want the challenge? Well, he's turned Golovkin down, apparently. So, what does he want? I'm running out of ideas to know what he wants, and it's just a little bit desperate, to be honest, and never say never and all that. I mean, you can say that internally, and you can think it to yourself and your team or your former team, but you don't need to be coming in the press saying, never say never. We're just in limbo.
Well, the last picture I saw him in, he was in still good shape, but I think, Tom, if he comes back, maybe say like 2-3 years time and gets beat, it's going to then start hampering the legacy like what's happened to Roy Jones Jr. lately.
Yeah. Aye, definitely. I've never understood this. These fighters saying, I can't get motivated. What fucking more motivation do you need if somebody going to punch you in the face, man? I've never ever got that. But yeah, if what age is he? 38. He's really if he's going to fight again, he's really Froch's style. It's not really a speed style. He's going to get once he starts breaking down physically. He's not going to be doing much. He's not really got a style that's going to take him into his 40s, be able to fight into his 40s, is he? Like say, maybe a Bernard Hopkins or that.
Yeah.
He's really got to start fighting. He's really got to, if he's going to fight, he's really got to start fighting just now.
Alex?
Yeah, I was saying it before we went live. I think that the main reason he's piped up is because George Groves is in the headlines, and I think if George Groves ends up doing quite well, beating Badu Jack, and making a good couple of defences, maybe even beating James DeGale, or maybe even if James DeGale beats him and looks convincing, maybe Froch will come back and fight the winner. I think that his ego will not allow either of those two to call him out continuously, and he'll come back and possibly get his ass destroyed by either of those two.
What do you think actually about Groves? It was slightly pathetic trying to troll Froch about him actually fighting in Vegas, but forgetting the irony, he's actually fighting on the fucking undercard chief support or whatever
I think it's hilarious. I think any trolling of Froch I approve of, even if it is as petty as what Groves is doing. Froch is a prick, he's a bit of a cunt, and to see him get wound up is all good in my books.
Do you know the problem with it?
That's the stuff that winds Froch up, though, isn't it? Groves is good at that. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to get in. He knows how to push buttons, doesn't he?
Sorry, Paul, on you go, mate.
No, so the problem is Froch has walked away knowing that he could still fight, knowing that there were fights out there, knowing he's physically fit enough to take those fights, and that's why he's struggling to, even though he says he's retired, because he knows if he had a 12-week camp, he could fight in December. That's the issue for him. It's not like he's got to a stage where he's gone, do you know what, my skills have left me, it's time to hang it up. He's chosen to step away, and it was, well, you can argue all day or night whether it was the right decision, but it's difficult knowing you can do something, and he's the only person who's deciding that he's not going to do it. It's not like he's a TV network's ditched him or his promoters left him, or, Rob McCracken would still train him if he wanted to come back. He could come back tomorrow, but he's choosing. I still don't think he will. It's just, it's difficult for him now.
Fuck motivation. Yeah, if the money is on the table, then he's going to take it, surely.
Well, there's a guy who writes for Boxing News, and he actually edits Box Rec, and I remember speaking to him about Froch, and he said that Froch is one of the most money-driven fighters. He might not sound in interviews, but they're all money-driven, but he is hugely money-driven. Everything's about the check for him. Thing is, though, he's earned millions. He's earned more money than he could, well, not that he can probably spend, but more than he needs. He's invested in property. Yeah, it's going to be very difficult for him to get the same kind of excitement out of, building up houses and renting them out as his fighting. And it's also going to be difficult when he sees George Groves quite possibly win a world title in Vegas, undercard or not. This isn't like it's been dumped on some crappy PBC undercard. It is still a Floyd Mayweather fight, regardless of the quality of it. And it'll be very difficult when he sees Groves and DeGale potentially fighting Wembley next year. He will know that he could have fought DeGale, he will know that he could have fought Golovkin, and he's the one who's decided not to do it. and I think it'll play on his mind for a good few years.
Do you think, Adam?
I just think there's a few things really. I think that he did and has got options at point of retirement, but he didn't have another Wembley fight on the table. And all things considered, that was a massive night. For everything involved, and obviously he had a perfect ending to it. He did have the options of Golovkin, blah blah blah, on the table, but there wasn't Wembley. So, to me, if you look at Twitter, the Vegas thing is now poked at Froch, and I think it's rather funny that the best thing that the Grove fans can now poke at Froch is the fact that he didn't fight in Wembley, didn't fight in Vegas. Well, I don't care where you're fighting. If you're knocking George or anyone out in that manner, the argument's over. So, but I think that through Froch's career, for me, as and I consider myself a close fan to it, I think the City Ground fight was more of his long-term goal and ambition to fight at the City Ground rather than Vegas. I think that towards the end of his career, Vegas obviously was spoke about more, and probably equalled the ambition to fight at the City Ground by the end. I don't know. It's just. It would be absolutely remarkable if George Groves could talk and possibly fight his way into a third fight with Carl Froch, and I wouldn't rule it out, but it would be remarkable.
Is the hate really that bad, mate? I mean, seriously, after that second fight, there's no way you could think to yourself, look, listen, I beat him the best way possible, I fucking erased him.
Yeah, but
there's no better way. I mean, you just leave it, man. You beat him twice.
But before the first fight, and I'm not scared of admitting it, George Groves tied Carl Froch up in knots before the first fight.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously,
but to be a Vegas fight, so it need to be purely about the money, and you can imagine what kind of fucking dispute that is going to cause. You've got a man who's possibly been out retired now. Well, just say Groves.
Well, it'll be 2 years.
So say that minimum, right? Next minute, Groves is going to start demanding the more money because he's been the more active fighter. He's the champion and stuff like that. All that type of shit. So how what's Froch got to come back to? I mean, he's got no bargaining position there.
Is it?
Well, he's got a bargaining position because he's 2-0 up.
Yeah, but he's been out the ring for 2 years. I mean, he's no Sugar Ray Leonard, for Christ's sake.
Well, I mean, and I'm going off that a little bit with Froch. I know people say he's got an amazing chin, but as he gets older, I think that Froch, what we've seen with Froch is not just the chin, taking big bombs, but also the recovery. And as Jim Watt will tell you, it's down to a lot of it's down to fitness. And I think as obviously anyone gets older, but particularly Froch, as he gets older. His chin might still be there for a one punch, but the recovery process, which he has shown to be, pretty damn excellent, if you can measure it, I think that will start to fade, and that's where he'll be in trouble.
I think the issue is going to be is that if he's not doing any sparring just now, you've really got to kind of teach yourself how to take a punch again. You've got to prepare yourself to get punched again. You just can't decide I'm going to have a fight. Jump in the fucking ring in the gym for the next 16 weeks or whatever to get in shape. He's in shape anyway.
Yeah.
I think you need to be out the ring for at least. You need to be in a sparring ring with the fucking helmet off, get a couple of decent fights or some real type of fights inside the gym first, just to get himself trained up to take shots again. Surely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's safe to say that he's had some top sparring across the years, and if he was to come back, he's still got access to that sparring, whether that be through links via Matchroom, via Rob McCracken and the Olympians, by just being Carl Froch. He would still got access to that, and he'll need to put some goddamn hard work in sparring if he was to come back after 2+ years.
Right, just before we get our first caller on, I've got a question in here, the Twitter question. Not really that many this week, which is probably a good thing actually, because sometimes getting bogged down the show slightly. But first question came in from Brian King. He was asking if Mosley admitted to juicing before the Oscar fight, why hasn't it been changed to a no contest? Right, well, I was actually doing a wee bit of digging on this one a couple of years back, because I was just doing some kind of research on the EPO and all that sort of thing, and I did come across the Shane Mosley thing. The Nevada rules at the time Nevada rules had allowed sanctions on fighters who violated certain drug restrictions, but they were not in effect when Shane Mosley defeated De La Hoya back in 2003. As a result, Keith Kaiser, who's the commissioner at the time, said he cannot change that result to no contest, despite this week's release of the Balco grand jury transcript, in which Mosley admitted he had not only taken banned oxygen boosting drug EPO, Mosley also used an undetectable steroid. And I think that was 2008 that article came out, so that's 5 years ago. So that's 5 years between the fight and that actual article being released. And De La Hoya says he wasn't interested in pursuing it in the courts. And I think he says De La Hoya can file something for us to look at, but he would have to go through a big legal hurdle. So I think he basically says at that time he just couldn't basically go through it. Hopefully that answers your question there, Brian. I think we've got a first caller coming on. Sorry, mate.
I think that's a disgrace that if somebody's obviously been cheating or that, the fight should automatically be a no contest to him. It shouldn't be any ifs or buts about it.
Yeah, it looks like they're hiding behind some sort of legal restriction thing there. So if they're hiding behind the law, then the fact is they'll be able to introduce it retrospectively. So that's basically De La Hoya fucked either way. It doesn't really matter. But I suppose it is a tainted victory somewhat.
Same, just like Can Peterson as well.
Yeah, well, he didn't declare it, did he? I don't suppose it wasn't so much the issue that he was taking the pellets, it was the issue that he hadn't declared it to the drug agency at the time.
Then he stuck his shirt after it. Fucking idiot.
Cameron there, Alex, no?
Just added into the call. He, should be coming on in a sec, hopefully.
Come on, Cameron, mate, jump on. Barry Evans asked the question, guys, when Floyd retires, will it only be Bradley that he wouldn't have fought in his era or at the weight in terms of active elite fighters?
Well, this is one where we could be here all night, but yeah, it's a good question.
Remember, the key word is elite.
Yeah, it's a great question, and the simple and short answer is probably yes. Bradley would be the only one left, really. But yeah, you guys are probably more qualified to talk about,
We'll talk about it in a minute, but we've got Cameron on the line now. Cameron, mate, how you doing?
Evening, guys.
What's on your mind?
Oh, well, I did have one question, but I just wanted to talk to the Froch subject. I mean, I'm a big Froch fan. But before retiring, Froch obviously spoke a lot about Golovkin, and he laid out all the demands he would want for Golovkin to get the fight made. He would fight him at his weight. Golovkin said he would come up to 168. He wouldn't come over to the UK, but also fight him at Nottingham, which is what Froch seemed to want. I mean, now was it the money, or he just didn't really believe he could win? I mean, it's no secret Froch has insecurities about himself. I mean, anyone who watches him in interviews, he constantly brings himself up, his achievements. I mean, even that thing with Floyd, and the comments he said, like GGG is a boy and too big and strong, it just seems to be insecurity and trying to keep himself relevant. I mean, a lot of people seem to forget heading into the Groves fight, the second one. Froch was the one who said, I think it was, he punches like a mule and avoid him like the plague, which shows me he doesn't really have the confidence in that fight.
You ain't got him.
And
I don't think you're far wrong, to be honest, Cameron. I'm in danger. My reputation as a matchroom and Carl Froch lover is going out the window. I need to be careful here. No, I don't think you're far wrong at all. To be honest, it was a strange way that they played it, and it was a strange and long way how they played the retirement. But yeah, I mean, with every human being, at some stage there is someone who comes up on the list or on the agenda, and you think, God no. And that's obviously what Golovkin's done. Now, Golovkin has called everyone's bluff by saying he will move up, he will come to Nottingham, he will probably take less money than Froch. He's called everyone's bluff, and they've been made to look slightly foolish.
Yeah, and what I wanted to ask was, now Floyd's fighting Berto, kind of wondering where Amir Khan's going to go, and I was wanting to know your thoughts on where he's going to go next. I think it'll be Furman, personally.
Well, to be honest, mate, we're actually going to be discussing Khan a wee bit later on, because we've got a wee topic come up here. But just as you mentioned that, he's been quoted as saying that Manny Pacquiao was a man, and he would definitely fight him, and he's quoted here as saying, let me just find this here, I really believe that fight can be made quite easily. I think Manny is a man and would definitely take the fight. So he's forgetting about Al Heyman. Is he still with Al Heyman? I mean, there's been rumours going about recently that, Khan's meant to be separating from Heyman and all this sort of stuff. Is he going to waste months, even more months of his career, waiting on Pacquiao coming back? Pacquiao's going to be out for at least another year, so I really don't know what Khan's going to do at all. I mean, I want the Brook fight to happen. There's no reason whatsoever that fight cannot happen. He's not going to take it for some reason. He's started mentioning him recently, but there's been no real, comment in his statements that he really intends to have any meetings with him, open dialogue. I think Eddie Hearn's basically stated as well that they won't even have a discussion, so I don't know where we're at, mate. As you say, it's got to be someone in the house if you're still with Heyman. Thurman, Porter, Cloner.
Yeah, I mean, I used to think it was Khan that didn't want Brook to fight, but, I mean, Khan said that he wants Brook to fight bigger names, and I'm not going to be surprised if Brook signs up with Heyman, because Hearn mentions all these names like Marquez, Bradley, Furman to Brook. but he just can't seem to land the fights. I'm not sure whether it's money or not, but he beat Porter, which is a good win, but other than that, you can't really say anything. You think, oh, he deserves the Floyd fight. You know, he has to beat one of these top names, and Hearn can't seem to deliver for him.
The other thing I was actually thinking about, was it Khan that Floyd Mayweather told him he actually had to go and face Jesse Vargas to show that he deserved the fight? And just recently as well, he says that you need to face Errol Spence Jr. to show you that you deserve the fight.
He's just on the wind-up, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's all he is.
Yeah.
Floyd loves it. I think that Floyd, you know, as much of a knob he is and a dickhead as he is and how stupid he comes across, he knows how to wind people up and he knows what he's saying. Especially Khan. He's been stringing Khan along for, 2 or 3 years now, and I don't think he ever intended on giving him that fight.
One thing, anyway, that we do know, Thurman's calling him out, and it's one thing that we didn't seem to hear Khan mentioning.
Well, it's just like Floyd saying, Carney's the Ranger Garcia lost, but, Berto got iced by Carras, and that doesn't mean anything, so.
I mean, this being strung along by the biggest manager in the world and the biggest fighter in the world, it couldn't have happened to a nicer bloke, to be honest. It's like being at school. Floyd Mayweather is a sixth former, and he's picking on the year 10 Amir Khan, and Amir Khan is picking on the year 7 Kell Brook. I think it's bloody brilliant, to be honest. Carry it on. Amir Khan has wasted nearly 3 years in America, apparently making himself into a name, which he keeps telling us, but I'm yet to see the actual hard evidence of that. Floyd Mayweather's just took the piss out of him, to be honest. Not only has Floyd Mayweather, had sex with one of his ex-missuses twice, figuratively speaking, in Marcus Maidana, he's now gone with his sister, Andre Berto, from the same house. I mean, it's brilliant. It's superb.
That's a very bizarre analogy, that one. Fucking hell.
I disagree. I disagree with that statement about the wasting his time in America thing. He's one of the highest paid guys on the PBC roster at the moment. He's picked up 3. They might not be the best wins in the world, but he's beat Collazo, Alexander, Algieri, solid guys, and he's got his list of options is endless. He could take the Brook fight tomorrow if he wanted to. He has all the power in that situation. Well, no matter what Matchroom and Eddie Hearn and Kell Brook try and say, Khan has all the power there. He could take it if he wants. At the minute, he's choosing not to. He's got plenty of options with the PBC fighters. He's been after the Floyd fight, but that's just not worked out for him. But he's still, it's not as though, he's wasted his time and now he's got nothing. He doesn't have the one fight which financially probably wouldn't have paid him as much as other options. Remember, he got over $1 million for the Algieri fight. He got over $1 million for Devin Alexander. He's a well-paid guy. So he's got the options with the Peterson rematch, with Garcia rematch, if Garcia could be coerced. Berman, he could do. One fight I don't think he'll take will be Porter, because I think that'd be seen as Kell Brook's leftovers. I don't think he'd do that. And I really hope he doesn't fight Manny Pacquiao. I would never be upset if I never saw Manny Pacquiao fight again.
I think, Paul, if we say that Floyd Mayweather is a level 1 fighter, we take Pacquiao out of the equation. Of the level 2 fighters, we've got Garcia, Brook, Furman, Bradley's obviously off the scale. But I think that Khan has got more of a chance of, he's going to get paid probably more to fight Kell Brook. It's going to be paid for in England. There's a title on the line, and it's probably actually more of a winnable fight for Khan. And this is me talking as a Brook fan and a Khan hater. It's probably more chance of Khan beating Brook than there is Danny Garcia and Thurman. Obviously, people can argue the opposite way with that. They're all close-ish fights. But he's holding on for Mayweather. He's got at least another, even if Mayweather fights next May, he's got at least another 8 or 9 months on the shelf. Come over here, take the massive paycheck, take all the adulation that you'll get from the British fans and, give something back to the British fans, who you've deserted for a long time. Take the belt. Happy days.
I disagree with that. I'm saying, I'll tell you his highest paid is right now. The way the Hearns offered him $5 million, right?
Yep.
That's £3.2 million. So if Amir's A side in the fight with Kell Brook, obviously we can all agree on that, right? So if this is a Wembley fight, and it's going to pay to Wembley, if Carol Froch is making, what was it?
7 million, was it not?
Yep, so how's Amir Khan being offered 3.2 million? I think Hearn's just absolutely full of shit. He's mentioning all these names, he's mentioning Benito Donaire, Gennady Golovkin, Brandon Rios. We've rounded a few of them off further on. And how many of them is he getting over? He's not getting any of them over here. Amir's biggest payday is the first one's Floyd Mayweather. The second one, it's maybe a fight that can't be made, though, is Manny Pacquiao, and the third one would be Manuel Marquez when he comes back in November. That's a possibility, that fight. The fourth fight would be Kell Brook. That would probably be his fourth highest paid fight. The other fight's not going to happen. It's not going to happen just now anyway. I'd like to see him take on Marquez. I think that's a bigger fight.
Okay.
I agree with
that's a pay-per-view fight. That's a pay-per-view fight in America, and it's going to do very good business in the UK as well, isn't it?
Anything else, Cameron?
Nah, that's it. Cheers, guys.
No worries, mate.
Right, take care.
Cheers. Just going back to that Twitter question, guys. Adam, I think Huber might chimed in there just about the fact is that when Floyd retires, will it only be Bradley that he wouldn't have fought in his era and at his weight in terms of active elite fighters?
Yeah, I think the short answer is yes. Good question.
I think there's a couple you could throw in. I don't know, elite's a difficult word, but I think fighters that would have given him a lot of problems. So Paul Williams, when he was at welterweight, I think just because of his punch output and his size, and even though I think Mayweather would have smashed him to bits, Margarito, that was one of the fights that was touted for a long time and never seemed to happen for one reason or the other. What with Margarito stepping up, so I think they're the only two that I can think
Didn't
of.
happen because Floyd was scared of him.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can argue. I think it would have been a mismatch, like most things are with Floyd. But yeah, there was you could certainly make a case that Floyd didn't want to take that fight. I would argue that he avoided the Williams fight more because he never even put it into the conversation. And Margarito was at least, he was asked about. Paul Williams, he certainly wasn't a brilliant or a perfect fighter, but I think he had. When you look at Floyd Mayweather, I don't think it's about how good you are, whether you can beat him. It's whether you've got a style that can outwork him over 12 rounds. And that's why Amir Khan gets pulled up so much as a potential opponent, because people think that he has the right style. I think Paul Williams had a very good style to beat Floyd, but he probably still would have lost because everyone else does.
What about Casamayor? Was that fight ever muted? Because he was a dirty wee bastard. He was not adverse to putting the head in and stuff, plus a southpaw as well.
Yeah. I think there was talk of the fight, but it never really materialised.
I think it was as the weights were switching, wasn't it? So I don't think they were ever at the same weight for a long period of time. So I think there was.
I think he went to lightweight, then he went up to obviously light welterweight by the time Casamayor had came up.
I think Gatti was coming off that three fight war with Ward at the time, when he fought him at light welter. Is that right? Maybe. I can't
remember now, man. It's been that long.
Next question comes in from Marcus Bellinger. Let me see if I've got this right here. Was Khan signing with Heyman the worst mistake of his career?
No.
Well, okay, you're thinking more from a financial point of view, though, aren't you?
Think from a financial point of view, but because look at this. Sorry, mate, carry on.
Paul first.
That's it. Look at the situation that Kell Brook is in, and tell me that Amir Khan's made a bad decision. Kell Brook, at the moment, despite being a legit world champion, fighting on Sky with box office money potentially, cannot get a fight. And you can blame Eddie Hearn all day, but it's because of the financial situation in his country. Amir Khan is in a position where he's in the right weight class in the right country, and he's getting big fights, headlining fights. Who was he fighting realistically when he was with Golden Boy and he was That's what you've got to compare it to.
No, what I was going to say was, my argument was going to be okay, staying with the PBC, Heyman getting your $1.5 million, whatever it is. My point with Golden Boy would be if he'd stayed there, he would have probably got some maybe better fights. He would have definitely probably become the star of that organisation. I mean, Oscar's tipping his hat on Lemieux just now if I can try and pull it off against Golovkin. You can't tell me that Golden Boy isn't struggling just now with all this shit going on in America with the double bookings and none of able to get venues and all that sort of stuff. I think if Canny went to Golden Boy, he would have been the star of the show, he would have got bigger money and probably even better fights. And I'd probably say another thing, I think that Brook fight would have happened by now as well. Or it would have been at least been spoken about at contract talks. If he stayed at Golden Boy.
If he'd have stayed at Golden Boy, he'd have been a bigger fish in a smaller pond. At the minute, he's a small fish in an absolutely massive pond that is the PBC. So there's certainly a case. Like the problem was under Golden Boy, obviously they matched him well. They probably matched him too well. They put him in with fighters that he struggled with. Obviously, he had a couple of defeats under them. I just think that there's a reason why, and it's not just a financial thing. There's a reason why everyone's flooding to Al Heyman. And that's because they are going to get matched well. Is it good for the fans that he went to Al Haymon? No, because we've missed out on probably a couple of fights that could have happened, and obviously the Brook situation stalled. But if you're Amir Khan, you're probably very happy with that. And as we've discussed at length before, and we won't probably get into it again, it's just never-ending debate. Amir Khan is just not that popular in the UK with a large majority of people.
Well, it'd be in America then, won't it? I think you're going with this, and it's probably the ethnic background, then yeah, I can see your point.
If I'm Amir Khan, I can go and fight in front of 800 people, 2,000 people in a casino hall in America and earn huge money. Or I could fight in front of 15,000 people at the MEN with a fair percentage of them who have only bought a ticket to see me lose. Now, if you're Floyd Mayweather and you're that personality, you can handle that. Amir Khan isn't as strong-minded as that, and I think it really got off his nose. So he decided to run over there.
Has Amir Khan's reputation with British fans, I know it's split, what I'm saying is, what's the egg and what's the chicken? Is Amir Khan deserting the UK and going to America? Is that got to do with why people are hating on him, or if he'd have stayed in Britain, he could be a star? I don't know.
But be a star in what circumstance? So he'd have to join Eddie Hearn because because that's the only way he'd be on Sky. Yeah. He doesn't want to do that wholeheartedly. So what were his options? Sign with Frank Warren, he's not going to do that. He'd already been there. Promote by himself, never a good start. Most fighters, when they try and do that on their own, they tend to fail. He had to go to America. And if you look at the run of fights he had over in the States, I mean, Malignaggi, Madonna, Judah, Peterson. No, I'm just saying, but we're talking about recognisable names, whereas, I reckon Cal Brook would struggle to get Malignaggi over to the UK. I know that sounds ridiculous, but look how much money he earned for his last fight.
500,000, surely Eddie Hearn can afford 500,000. I mean, he was willing to give Carl Frampton 1.5 or whatever it was.
Yeah, but that's a much, much bigger fight. That's what I mean. Eddie Hearn can make massive offers for certain fights in certain divisions because more money is over here and the fighters are willing to come. In at £147, and I know I've said this before, all of the money and the majority of the fighters are in America. It's not like there's loads of welterweights in Russia and Eastern Europe. Most of them are concentrated in America, or even if they're not American, if they're South American, they're all fighting in the States. So he's gone there. And in terms of the chicken and the egg thing, Amir Khan's reputation has taken several knocks because of several stupid things that Amir Khan has done and said. Yep. However, there are other fighters who have said and done many more stupid things, fighters that have taken drugs, and fans have just forgiven them straight out. There are fans right now that think that Shane Mosley is absolutely brilliant and hilarious. I mean, this man is a proven drug cheat. But, Amir Khan never touched a drug as far as we know, never cheated, represented the UK at the Olympics, and he just gets hammered by a very large percentage of people online, certainly. And for any of us that have been to his shows, we'll be able to agree that there is that horrible element. I don't know if it's a race thing or whether it's just, I don't know. It's a difficult one for me.
Paul, I know you've witnessed it firsthand, and I haven't, but I think that you need to be a serious hater to buy a ticket just to go and abuse someone. And I get it if, say, I don't know, just plucking names from my hat, if someone along the lines of Josh Warrington is on an undercard and his fans stay and watch Khan and boo him, I kind of get that. But going just as just sole purpose to hate on Amir Khan live, that's some serious level of commitment.
There's issues there, there's issues there.
What about all the fans who wore sombreros to the Barrera fight?
That was brilliant. I loved that. I didn't love the fight.
That's the exact fight I'm thinking of. So I've been to see Amir Khan fight live 4 or 5 times, and the second to last one I saw was the Barrera fight. And there were people, I get people going there to support Barrera. There was a lot of Barrera fans, but you just listen to the audio on Sky when Amir Khan walks to the ring. He's getting booed. He's fighting in a city half an hour from his hometown, and he's getting booed. And Barrera got cheered in. And like I said, it depends on the fight. When he fought Kotelnik, the crowd was a lot better. But when he fought Salita, when he fought Barrera...
That was an evil atmosphere, that Salita fight. I was at that. That was fucking horrible.
Was that the Newcastle one?
Yeah, it was absolutely awful. That was awful. And I'm not saying one side was bad than the other, but there were fucking issues on both sides. And it was fucking horrible. I couldn't wait to get out of there.
Can I also add that a certain gold medalist, James DeGale, got booed for much of the early part of his career?
I think it's because when you put a fighter on a pedestal, and a lot of the Olympians, they have been. I mean, a lot of people criticise, Joshua, maybe not because of what he's doing, but because of the hype around him. But when you're coming off that pedestal off the Olympics, It's a very British thing to knock you straight away. Do you know what? If Anthony Joshua got beat by Cornish or Dillian White, a lot of people would love it. And I know it sounds really stupid, but I think it's just a negative mindset we have about certain athletes and certain people. And it is really a British thing. I don't think you'd get that elsewhere. I think Khan has fallen into that.
I think you're all looking far too much into this. I think you're trying to think of too many reasons.
Is it all Carl Froch's fault?
Well, that's one part of it, but I think a lot of things that Carl Froch has got in common with James DeGale and Amir Khan isn't, it's nothing to do with the medals or race or anything like that. It's because they are total pricks. People don't like them. They've got a really abrasive attitude, and they're pricks. I think it's as simple as that in some cases.
And Amir Khan is one of them.
Anyways, moving on to the last...
I think the thing with Froch is that he's made a career to backstabbing other British fighters, hasn't he? To criticising them, to relegate fighters like Joe Colzaghi. He's attacked Khan, he's attacked James. He's pretty much attacked everybody, hasn't he? And he's done it for years. I don't think Khan's really that bad a guy. He says some stupid shit sometimes, but I don't think he's a bad guy.
The difference is, when Amir Khan did that thing on Skype, he was on the front page of The Sun. None of the national newspapers have delved into the Kell Brook stabbing situation. If they did, I think the public persona of Brook would be very, very different to what it is now. But it's because he's not...
No one cares about him. It's no one cares about him.
Well, that's what I mean. It's because no one cares. It's because if you look at these... We're talking about the fighters that are hated, or hated by some. Carl Froch, Amir Khan. These are all guys... Nassim Hamed was the same. These are all guys who are fighting at an incredibly high level, or are certainly very well known in a wider public view. Ricky Hatton, again, when he had his downfall, that was massive national news. Many fighters have been involved in situations like that, but because they're not as well known, they're not as criticised. Amir Khan is criticised because he is incredibly well known. He's criticised in his own community as well because of the things that he's been up to. It's like I said, it's not. I'm not making it more complicated, Alex, by saying there's a lot more to it than just he's a prick. A lot of fighters are pricks. He's a prick on a well-known national scale, and he's open to abuse and hatred,
because
just like other fighters have been.
He puts himself out there. It's not as if he's a fucking recluse. He's always up for giving a quote about everything. He's always the biggest headline for fucking years is Amir Khan says. I'm sick of hearing about what Amir Khan says. He's always happy to fucking put his name out there because he knows he wants the attention. He wants the press attention. And unfortunately, if you want all that attention, you're going to open yourself up to criticism as well. That's, it goes hand in hand.
And I'll agree with that. And I'll also say that one problem that Amir Khan has is people think he's a good talker. He's not. He talks quite smoothly, but his intelligence isn't very good. So
he's got the IQ of a biscuit.
That's what I mean. But like I said, he talks a lot smoother than, say, Brook does. But the things that come out of his mouth are just idiotic. So that's where he struggles. So sometimes he'll say something or a quote, and certain fighters just do it more than others. I remember a video with Froch, an IFL video, where he basically was absolutely slagging Frankie Gavin, saying that he didn't stand a chance in the fight. He doesn't dedicate himself. Frankie walks down the aisle and he calls, "Oh, hello, mate, you're right." I think certain fighters are just like that, and the more we see of them, the more that we dislike.
Yeah. Right, last question before Belly of the Week. Marcus Bellinger asking, after talk on here last night about crying, have any of the panel ever been in tears after a fight? I don't know, I remember once in primary school, this guy stuck the head in me and burst my nose open once, actually.
After an actual fight, after watching a fight.
Oh, it's just after a fight, so I could just kind of pick that any way I want,
I know Matty cried when Manny Pacquiao won't drink his hat on it.
I remember that, aye.
Yeah, that's the same for me.
I mean, crying after Pacquiao got erased by Marquez,
The closest, genuinely closest I've been to tears at any sporting event was when Klitschko knocked Povetkin down 4 times, and I had my max bet on Klitschko KO, and it went to the points. I had to take myself for a walk because also I'd have ended up punching my girlfriend.
I think one thing was when Hatton made his comeback and he fought in Manchester. That was the two both Hatton for me. The Hatton when he got drilled by Pacquiao, that one you couldn't speak to me for about a week. And when he got knocked out in Manchester, just to feel that huge sadness in the crowd, like the whole thing, it just went so silent. You've never heard the guy ringside. Yeah, you've never heard the guy ringside. When they do the count obviously on the microphone, and often you can't hear it because it's so loud. You could hear every single word. And that was pretty bad. That's probably the closest I've ever come.
No, nothing for me, guys. Nothing at all. So that being the case, we'll just jump right on to Belly of the Week segment, which Alex will get the intro playing.
Okay, what's the value of the week? It's going to happen, mate. We're going to do it. And when we do it, it's going to be vicious, mate. I ain't a man dregsing with the weights. I ain't a man taking the last ounces of my soul on the scales. I've done that before. I ain't doing it no more. You can say what you want. Oh, Bellew's not in shape. Bellew looks fleshy at the weight. Bellew's just iced a man who's never been done before. Bellew just feels in absolutely fantastic shape. Bellew doesn't lose 2.5 stone no more each time at a camp. Bellew goes to the gym now 15 stone and just cuts 10 pound nice and easy. I fought Nathan Cleverly in my 16th fight, 15 fight novice. I had 4. The best person I fought was Oval Mackenzie at British title level. I am now, is that 25, is that 26 fights? I've fought some of the best. I fought the best fighter in the world in my weight class, one of the biggest pound for pound punchers in the world. I've beat guys like Isaac Chilemba, world ranked guys. Let's see who beats Isaac Chilemba. I've beat renowned punchers, Ederson Miranda. I'm not saying he was the best Ederson Miranda. I'm just saying I've beat these guys. Who's he beat? Okay, everyone's saying, well, Tony, he did beat you. He beat a guy who basically got a fight because he opened his mouth at a press conference and he sells a shitload of tickets to the Echo Arena. That's why I got that fight. Everybody thought he was going to smash me. Everyone involved with that fight thought he was going to smash me. But when he went to within an inch of losing, and it's a decision that could have went either way, he doesn't want to come near me after it. That's why he couldn't answer the question then when I said it in front of him. Just answer me this: why wouldn't you take the rematch immediately? Do you know what he said? I think he was saying what that Walsh train station was. That long word. I couldn't understand what he was saying. I just answered a simple question. Why wouldn't you fight me the minute after the rematch happened? He wouldn't fight me because he believed he was going to knock me out, and he just believed he was going to beat me up. And that's all I've got to say about that.
Let's do it right now. We can do it right now, you fucking rat.
Okay, what's the value of the week?
The funny comments in the boxing world is back. Belly of the Week has made a return, and it was quite busy last week, guys. I did think when I've seen the Mayweather-Berto announcement get made, quite a few mistakes getting made across the board, Showtime, etc. But the first one goes to the vice president of the Floyd Mayweather supporters group movement. This guy, he's under the name of Jesse Mendoza, and his Twitter handle is @Jesse, that's Jesse, Jesse23 Sports. Hook this guy up and just say hello to him if you want to, but these comments he made was just straight after the announcement of this fight. And he's tagged in Mayweather and Berto, and he says, "Can't wait, I've been waiting for this fight since Berto was WBC champ back in the day." And then about, I think it was a few years later, Ishii Smith had got involved, and he'd mentioned that he was also going to be on the pay-per-view undercard. And this guy, Mendoza, then tweets back, he says, "Oh, you're on the pay-per-view also. Now that is a pay-per-view. So many big fights." Tony Perez. Now, Tony Perez is an old referee. He's on the judging scene now. He actually was the official judge for the Kretov-Brinson fight at the weekend. They had Brinson by a shutout. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen the fight. Some of the listeners probably have. I think, from what I read anyway, it was quite close on the scorecards. Now, according to some person on Twitter I spoke to, Perez was actually spotted in the bar down in shots before the actual showbox card actually went out live. And they handed in a fucking scorecard of, was it 70, 65 or 64 or something like that?
62, I think. He gave a 10-8 round against Kitrov. Kitrov pretty much was close to knocking him out in the round before.
I always think my best scorecards are when I'm drunk. They're always very interesting.
No, they're not, mate. No, because I had Lebedev beating Huck 117, 105 or something like that. Fucking something stupid like that. It was wasted. I think it was the same night Hopkins fought actually as well. I can't remember who he was fighting, but ESPN made a complete error hunt of the Mayweather-Berto announcement by putting out basically the tail of the tape, and have stated that Floyd Mayweather has the advantage in age and height. Mayweather's like 7 years older than Berto. And finally, the other one goes to Arthur Spilka. stating that he wants to be the Polish Floyd Mayweather. Well, I think he's already done that. He's been to prison, hasn't he? So he doesn't really need to. He's already is the Polish Mayweather. He's already been to prison. And finally, Floyd Mayweather himself with his TBE list. Now, 10 names. I think it was on Mexican television. I think it was, and 10 names were mentioned. And the names were followed as Floyd Mayweather, Muhammad Ali, Julio Cesar Chavez, Pernell Whitaker, Roberto Duran, Henry Armstrong, Sugar Ray Leonard, Sugar Ray Robinson, Joe Louis, and Rocky Marciano. Floyd Mayweather was asked to pick out his top 5, right? Now obviously he's going to put Cesar Chavez in the top 5 if he's doing it on the Mexican television, which is fair enough. And you've got to pick Duran because he's a big favourite with the Mexicans. But he left out Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Henry Armstrong. Now, you leave either of those 3 out your top 5 list, and there's something really wrong. Because I think you can't really rate Leonard any lower than maybe, 5, 6 maybe. But he puts Mayweather number 1 on that list. So I just think the fact that he's left out Sugar Ray Robinson and Henry Armstrong specifically should basically make him worthy of getting this award this week. But I've viewed quite a few, mate. What you got?
Yeah. I sent my list in earlier. How far back was it? Number 1, Sky Sports News graphic. Floyd Mayweather, fights 48, won 48, lost 48.
That was about...
Anthony Joshua to, I think it was Boxing Scene. Headline to the article, Berto is a great way for Mayweather to end career. That one was come from Mr. Jack Horton. First one was from Danny Robson, LFC, by the way. And thirdly, I don't know if you've seen this, a fight from Argentina over the weekend. A fella called Roman Martinez took one of the worst dives I've ever seen. I've posted it up in the chat. That's my number 3. So Roman Martinez, honestly horrific. Worse than the one on Dillian White the other week. Really, really bad. So Roman Martinez will be coming to a matchroom bill near you very soon.
Ooh. Alex, you anything, mate?
Just the ones, basically, The Guardian calling him Chris Berto, fucking Showtime tagging in, what's his name, George St. Pierre, instead of George Groves, for the
Badou Jack fight.
The Badou Jack fight. Obviously the Sky Sports one, it's just fucking endless, really. This is the contempt that, mainstream media have got for this Berto Mayweather fight. They just can't even be bothered with the fact checking. Oh, the Guardian also said that Berto originally they said that Berto was a great Puerto Rican fighter. But he's from Haitian, isn't he, or something like that? Or I can't remember exactly where he's from. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. No respect, no interest in this fight from the mainstream media, and hardly any of them even know who Berto is. I mean, Chris Berto sums out really. It's as good as old Brian Jones from last week.
Paul?
Yeah, I was going to say the Grove St. Pierre one, but there were so many that night because it was the amount of errors that were being made across the board. And then just as a belly of the rather than one single incident, if you look at Stephen Espinosa's entire fit timeline from that night, I asked him why he wasn't fighting Keith Thurman, and he said, he's not fit. So I said, if he was fit, would he fight him? And he said, no, it was always going to be Berto. So he just contradicts himself for hours and hours, and I swear he's a parody. It's almost like he's a parody account, the stupid shit he was coming out with. But yeah, there were so many. When you release a fight this shit, there's going to be so many shitty errors from so many people. It made for good entertainment that night.
I think this is, someone's just tweeted this in, I think it's a bit of an old name, but I imagine Tava brought it up again in the build-up for next week's fight. Antonio Tava referring to himself as the main name in the heavyweight division.
Fuck's sake, man, that guy really is desperate for the money. Tommy, you got anything, mate?
No, I'm just going to go right ahead and get to Floyd Mayweather this week.
So there we go. We've got Jesse Mendoza, who I want you all to tweet and kind of welcome him to the real world. Tony Perez, Floyd Mayweather for numerous offences. Showtime, ESPN for numerous offences, and Arthur Spilka. There was a couple other ones put in there. The Guardian. Who else? Chris Berto. Anyway, list is endless. Alex, who's getting your pick this week, mate?
Yeah, I'll go with Floyd. I mean, he did well by himself by having Duran as number 2, but to leave out fucking Robinson and Leonard and Armstrong, it just shows that he's a bit bitter and he considers himself, far greater than he is.
His ego is far, far big. So, Tommy, I take it you're taking Mayweather for that comment also, mate?
Yeah.
That list. Yeah. So that's 2-0. Paul?
Yeah, the same. I think if they'd have put Roger Mayweather and Floyd Mayweather Sr. on that board, he'd have had them in the top 5 as well. Yeah. So, yeah, Floyd for that absolutely shambolic list.
He's going to win this.
Jeff top 15.
He's going to win it. I know, I think there's really no point with your votes, mate, but just give me your quick pick.
Chris Berto, that's not even close. It's not even like Andrew or, Chris to Andre. That's brilliant.
But it's still not enough to stop Floyd Mayweather from being undefeated yet again and picks up the award. Well done, Floyd Mayweather, on the Bellew of the Week award this week.
He'll be too busy tweeting photos of his cars and his watches to notice, but we should still all tweet him anyway.
Don't
Some
tweet it
Paul's
to
getting
him.
slapped when he finds out he's won this.
Don't tweet it to him because he can't fucking read it anyway.
Anyway, on to our discussion this week. Now, as you know, probably some of you will know, some of you won't know, but for any of the historical buffs out there, or anyone who's following the sport very, very, for a few years or whatever, this Wednesday will mark the 33rd anniversary since the passing of one of the most tactically adept fighters who seemed to be well on the road, in my opinion, to being a serious contender, to be a top 10, or definitely top 15, but definitely a top 10 all-time great. And that is, of course, if he continued, and if it were not for his death, then it would apparently he was going to retire within the year and become a doctor. So all the future big fights that we could have dreamed of may never happened anyway. But Salvador Sanchez was born January 26, 1959 in a small village of Tianguistico, Mexico. Now, he was one of 11 children in a lower to middle class family who were basically farm workers. He turned pro at 16 in May 1975. And after apparently only taking up the sport at the age of 13, some reports suggest that he only fought 4 times as an amateur, whilst other reports state he actually fought 9 times, winning them all. Now, he started off in the local gym before moving to Mexico City, and he was trained in the Gimnasio Margarita, and he would end up training on the estate of his wealthy manager, Jose Torres Landa. Now, he went 18-0 as a pro before dropping a 12-round split decision against Antonio Bacara for the Mexican bantamweight title. Now, back in them days, Sanchez was kind of more of a brawler, guys, and after drawing with Juan Escobar, he changed management and hired Enrique Hureta, who would basically develop into a fighter that, if anyone's seen Sanchez fight, especially his title reign anyway, this is, spoken about by, if you look at him, it was this guy that actually moulded him into probably one of the greatest featherweights. Well, what is one of the greatest featherweights of all time, but depends on how high you want to put him. Now, his match day title consisted of 13 straight wins after that draw, and prior to stepping in with the lineal world featherweight champion Danny Little Red Lopez. Now, you just need to put this into context, guys. At the age of 21, he's ranked 8th in the world, and he's now refined his game to show poise, calmness, tactical awareness, and counter-punching ability beyond his years. He became a truly splendid boxer-puncher with endless stamina, and apparently his doctor actually had him sparring 5-minute rounds and managed to bring his heart rate down to 45 beats a minute. Just simply by breathing. I don't know how that's possible, but anyway. But if you ever look at Sanchez in the corner between fights and stuff, see him in the corner, he's never breathing heavy. But the young Sanchez anyway took apart the big hit Lopez, finally forcing a stoppage in the 13th round. And Lopez at that time, Tommy, was a very, very solid and very respected fighter who was straightforward, and he could also bang as well, mate.
I'm a big fan of Danny Lopez as well. He was a top fighter. Yeah, it was obviously it was considered a bit of an upset in that Sanchez obviously put him away, great fight, had the rematch in that through it as well. But I believe there was people that thought maybe Lopez had just had an off night when he got stopped. So
because they were backing Lopez to beat him, that way. You think a 21-year-old kid who hadn't really fought anybody at that time.
So Sanchez was definitely the underdog from what I understand, and he's basically just went in there and ripped the title if you have say a top champion.
Yeah, he was a top champion, mate. Paul, Alex, you want to weigh in here, but specifically on the Danny Little Red Lopez fight. I mean, you need to think about it. This guy Lopez, right? He went to the almost the prison canteen anyway in Ghana to win the title for David Cote. I think he was a late stoppage. I think that was. But anyway, he had that fight of the year award against Mike Ayala. He beat Ruben Olivares, Jesus Castillo, who you probably know him as Chucho Castillo, Sean O'Grady, Roberto Constantino. Juan Domingo, Malvarez, all good fighters, guys. And you think about it as well, you're talking about a guy, a 21-year-old kid here who actually was, nowadays you wouldn't really see guys doing what he did. You know, he would fight one guy within maybe say December and over a course of a 10-rounders, a warm-up against guys who wouldn't really, you wouldn't really class him as journeyman. The Nicky Perez fight, for instance, in the build-up to Wilfredo Gomez, you know, Perez wasn't a really great fighter, but he was no journeyman. You know, see, by today's standards, I think Perez would definitely been a world champion at that point, but it just shows you the kind of guy we're dealing with this time. Give me your take, guys, on Salvador Sanchez. I'll start with you, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we talked about this the other day, and we said we were going to be talking about him, and I didn't know a huge amount, so I've watched a lot and I've read a lot about him, and again, it's about what he managed to achieve at such a young age. Also the progression, because he was in with guys at a good level, but nothing like the step up he took when he went in with the Lopez fight. And it's also a throwback to when they obviously the 15-round fights. I mean, he stopped him in the 13 rounds in the first fight. And to achieve what he did at that age was incredible. But I think when I'm obviously watching the fight back, it's just such a good style to watch. He had a bit of, watching a lot of him, he had a bit of everything. And I think obviously he confirmed that when he beat him for the second time. But to get to that level at that age was remarkable. And he fought, I mean, I went through looked at his record and looked at some of the guys he fought in his first sort of 15 so fights, and he was matched, I wouldn't say he was matched toughly, but he was in with decent guys. He was in long round fights quite early on. There was, considering his age, and like Canelo, for example, who fought mostly nobodies up into his 30th fight, if we're talking about a similar fighter from that kind of background and a young start. He was matched tough early on, and to get to where he did at that age was remarkable.
2 years, 5 months, he had 9 title defences against very well respected opponents, and they all brought different components. I mean, if you look at the Pat Ford fight, he had serious problems early in that fight because Ford was tall, he was rangy, had a good jab. You know, Sanchez, you know, it wasn't like just basically come out in the first round and fucking take it to him. That was his style. He just basically took you apart, play by play, until you were finished, and then he took you out if he could do it. But the Part 4 fight, he really worked well in that fight, especially late on, and he finally got the decision out the bag, and I think his power was very underrated. Good balance, good movement. Alex, give me your take on Sanchez, mate. We lost Alex. Tommy, you want to take that up, mate?
Sorry, what's the question, mate?
Just the fact is he's went in there 9 title defences in 2 years, 5 months. I mean, after he had fought, I think his last fight against Azuma Nelson, he was talking about the Juan Laporte rematch, and then I think even by the end of 1982, maybe early 1983, they were talking about fighting Arguello.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is part of the legend, though, mate. This is part of Sanchez's legend here. Yeah. He was that good a fighter. I mean, I'm not saying for a second he was definitely, he wasn't unbeatable. His record proves that. But he would give you the hardest fight of your career. I think against like Arguello, who preferred straightforward fighters, Arguello would have beat him. But considering that Sanchez was totally different, bit of a mover, good body movement, I think Sanchez would have took that fight. And I'm an Arguello fan.
I'm an Arguello fan too. I agree with you 100%. I think Salvador Sanchez should have beat him. Definitely, the guy's his potential was unlimited, wasn't it? What was he, 23 when he died?
23 when he died.
23. He had as you say, nine title defences, and it's not just the title. He was fighting great fighters in his defences. Wilfredo Gomez, obviously, won a title for
that fight, mate.
Yeah, was Sanchez underdog in that fight? Yeah,
2-1 underdog. He was. I think Gomez was 2-1 favourite. I think that's what it was.
That's Gomez too, man. He was a freak in nature.
He was a tremendous. I tell you, if you talk about Puerto Rican fighters, he's probably my most all-time favourite. He had a bit of nastiness in him. He had the punching power. He had the left hook, and contrary to the beliefs, everyone's got a few stoppage defeats on his record. His chin was actually pretty solid. He takes a good shot. So he could see a lot of people don't think he was that good a boxer either. He was actually a good boxer as well. But Sanchez, you just look at the names in that when he's fucking. Runs off.
He would probably. Isn't it? You can't really put him as the
best.
Mexican fighter in my opinion. No. I think that goes to
Chavez.
I've got Baby Arismendes as number one. I've got him. He's got a couple of wins over Henry Armstrong. He's beat who's he beat? He beat Chalky right, a good form champion. Draws with Agnet,
Did he beat Armstrong a few times? I think they had about 4 or 5 fights.
Fought 5 times. I think it was 5 times, and it was 3-2 to Armstrong.
Was it?
But I think, as I say, I've got him 1. I've got Chavez 2, and I think I've got Sal Sanchez at number 3. But to be honest, if 23-year-old and what he achieved, if he'd have lived and he hadn't went on to become a doctor, he would have probably went down as the best Mexican fighter ever, wouldn't he have?
Well,
potentially.
I'm going to make an argument in a wee bit just to see if anybody's going to fall on board. But I just want to get Alex's take on Salvador Sanchez, mate. Is he the greatest featherweight of all time in your opinion, Alex?
It's the whole debate with him. It's the career cut short, isn't it? What could have been with him? That's always going to be the thing hanging over him. I don't think you can rate him the greatest ever. It's the potential of him. When you watch him fight, just how like just the fluidity of his movements and the counter punching. I mean, he's not your typical Mexican, is he? He's not your typical come forward, just bang it out, go straight, never take a step back. He always took a step back. He was very measured. He the counters, in particular the Gomez fight. I was just watching it earlier again, and just in the first round, like the way he just slips under a really sort of vicious right hook coming from Gomez just in the first round, and then he bangs in with his own right hook, and when he's caught on the ropes as well, he take the chin on him is unbelievable. I mean, if he does typify something of Mexicans, it's this iron chin of his, and the Gomez fight is probably my favourite simply because it proved that he was a big underdog, like we've said. Gomez was supposed to go into that and absolutely bang him out, absolutely destroy him, and there was a lot of shit talking before that fight. I seem to remember, what I've read up about it. And, Gomez was saying, I'm going to really hurt you, and he's giving it all this shit. Yeah. And then he just fucking absolutely decapitated him in the first round almost, Sanchez did. That counter that he got him with in the left, he looked like out cold.
Right hand, left hook.
Right hand, left hook. That left hand, he looked like he was out cold.
Oh, he was gone.
Yeah,
he was gone in that first round.
And imagine, a British ref with that first round, Gomez.
Howard Foster.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous, and fair shout out to Gomez, he survived, but I think he was just gone after that. There was no chance he was coming back after that. He just got absolutely destroyed in that fight, and you really saw just how good Sanchez was. And again, the power of Gomez, what we've seen him do, I mean, he was already on the sort of Mexican hit list for beating Carlos Zarate, and then Sanchez comes back and just fucking obliterates him. It's just a beautiful fight, and obviously we've got the Azuma Nelson fight. He was still a novice at the time, and not a novice, shall we say, but he really proved himself after that fight how good Nelson was. And we were saying just before the pod about the similarities you can make between like Floyd and Canelo, what Canelo's going to go on to do, and what Nelson went on to do, really just sort of solidify how good Sanchez was.
Yeah, you just took my next point away there, Alex, or my next question I was just going to put out there. I mean, obviously the Gomez fight was tremendous. He did show a good chin. I think the only thing you could probably say about Sanchez that was maybe at fault was the fact is, I did think he was open to left hooks and right uppercuts. I just think sometimes the way he would lean in, he would leave himself open to right uppercuts and stuff. Which I think he'd have ironed out if his career had actually went on, if he hadn't decided to retire or unfortunately hadn't passed away. But if you look at the Zuma Nelson fight, that fight alone stands up. You know what people said after, as you said, Alex, quite rightly, people mentioned about Floyd Canelo, that win for Floyd will only be enhanced depending on what Canelo does in his future. What Nelson did was fucking beat some of the greats round about at that time. I mean, okay, he was 13-0 Commonwealth champ going in there at the time, but a lot of people expected him to fold, and he pushed Sanchez to the limit, very well, especially to the middle rounds. But as I mentioned, the poise and the precision and just the counter punching ability of Sanchez just picked him off. I think he changed the fight in the 6th or 7th round with a left hook, and then Nelson he was hurt but still game. But think about the opponents he fought and defeated Nelson: Gabriel Ruelas, Gomez, Jesse James Leha, Calvin Grove, Jeff Fennick. Okay, one of the fights was kind of suspect in the officiating. Juan Laporte, Marcos Valasana, Mauro Gutierrez, Pat Cowdell, who took Sanchez a distance. Some fucking good fighters on that list of Azuma Nelsons.
Jim McDonnell.
Yep, Jim McDonnell as well.
That's a good fight, that Jim McDonnell fight.
Well, the other thing as well is he was a 3-time world champion over 2 weight divisions over an 11-year period. That just tells you as well about his longevity as well. Plus as well as I don't think he was a big crowd pleaser or a big crowd puller, so he actually had to go on the road and win a lot of those fights, away from home and stuff. That was another thing about the guy that sometimes got overlooked about Nelson as well. But this is all about Sanchez.
Tried everything to get Barry McGuigan in the ring, didn't he? Barry when you fight him with it.
Does the Azuma Nelson win, does it carry as much weight considering that it was taken on such short notice and that as it was only Nelson's, was it 13th fight, 14th fight? Does that take, is it the equivalent of if someone fought sort of a top 10 or top 3 pound for pound fighter in their 10th, 11th, 12th fight? It's a bit like, for the example I was thinking, it was like Salido and Lomachenko. Now, Lomachenko will probably go on and win, multiple belts and multiple divisions, but Salido will always have that win over him. Is there a chance that you're maybe overvaluing that win over Nelson at that time? Because that's the big. Yeah,
you could say that because at the end of the day, it's all subjective. People, historians look at that fight. They do say, they give him a lot of credit for that fight. Some rank him in the top 5. I think the Ring magazine had him in the top 5 best featherweights of all time. I see what you're getting at, in all honesty. I just think the fact is who Nelson beat and what their records were, just knowing what their reputations were as fighters and as champions, I think it's a standout victory.
Nelson was older as well. He was actually older than Sanchez, wasn't he? Too, so obviously in ring years Sanchez had a lot more experience, but yeah, you maybe compare it to when Roy Jones fought Bernard Hopkins the first time.
I was going to say that fight actually. The other one I was thinking about as well. It's right out of my head. But what I was going to say is, if he had lived and if he had decided he was going to retire and become a doctor and stuff, this is going to be my argument here for if he could have made a challenge for the top 5 of all-time greats. If he had survived, now there was talk of a Eusebio Pedrosa fight, unification, but I think it was about 1981 that fight was mentioned, but for some reason it never happened. Now obviously the Laporta rematch was getting mutated after the Nelson fight, and obviously the Aguel fight was getting mentioned at the end of the year. Now if he'd lived and he fought on, he could have faced the likes of Rafael Lemon, Bose Edwards, Bobby Chacon, Hector Camacho, Julio Cesar Chavez, Rocky Lockridge, probably Wilfredo Gomez again, Jose Luis Ramirez, Edwin Rosario. If he had somehow, say, beat all those guys, or maybe lost a couple of fights and won a rematch and stuff, considering again what these guys all achieved in the sport, could you see that guy being mentioned in top 5? I know it's a bit of hypothetical and all that sort of stuff, but could you see him being top 5?
There was definitely enough quality around at that time for him to definitely be in the argument, for the talent the guy he had and for the opposition that would have been available to him, you've got to say he could have been really one of the best ever, yeah.
Have I been too far in that, Alex and Paul has been talking too much nonsense there?
I think it falls into that what-if category of, what if he had gone on and fought those guys and lost more than half the fights and struggled as he got a little bit older? It's because we talked before about, certain guys in certain sports, when they die particularly young, you never get to see them slip, you never get to see them get worse. He died at his absolute peak of his ability. So he may have got a little bit better, but in theory, the level that he was at, you couldn't see where he would go from there. So we wouldn't have seen the decline, we wouldn't have seen the losses. He was in the right division at that time, he was in the right weights at that time, so there could have been a lot of big fights for him, but if he'd have beaten those guys, or if he'd have beaten 75% of those guys you listed, then certainly he'd be considered probably higher than what he is now. At the moment the discussion with Sanchez is, was he the best Mexican fighter of all time? Most people tend to have him 2 or 3. He's not in the discussion for the best fighter of all time at the moment. Right, he never will be because of his early demise. But yeah, if he'd have beaten those guys, he certainly could have been in that conversation. But because we'll never know, it's almost, from his legacy, it's a good thing because people only remember him for those massive wins and those performances. We never got to see him do what so many other fighters do, and like Chavez did, and fight on and on beyond when he should have quit.
He took a few shots as well. You know, you just don't know. He could maybe, by the time he got to 25, he could have been Fernando Vargas all over again. You know, it's hard to say, but for the talent he's got in the competition that was available.
I think his chin was amazing. I mean, I seen Gomez catch him with a
Gomez shots just fucking ridiculous.
I remember what do you call him? Nelson catching him with a left hook as well. You know, he just.
The thing is, he was
brushed off with around.
He was, obviously planning to go up to lightweight at some point for the Aguayo fight, and we never would have seen what would have happened there. He might have just been banged out. He might not have been suited to that division at all. But it made me think, and I know you're obviously a big Duran fan, Andy, and it wasn't the sort of right timing for it. But how would you have seen that? It's quite difficult to say because we don't know how Sanchez would have been at lightweight. But how would you have seen Sanchez versus Duran at lightweight?
If you're talking about lightweight, Duran would be roughly about the late 70s, but just say the fight was made at lightweight, I would probably, prime for prime, I would probably go with Sanchez. Simple fact is...
That's a big call.
That's a big call, because I'll go with Sanchez, simple fact, and I'm a huge Duran fan. I say these two are my two most favourite fighters in the whole world, but I would say the movement, the counter-punching ability would be slightly too much for Duran. I don't see a stoppage. I think it would go to distance. It would be tight on the cards. I think Sanchez would just maybe do enough to get it on the cards. I think, if you look at what Leonard did to him, Benitez, and to a certain extent, Curtin Lang, although it's rumoured that Duran wasn't really in top shape for that fight or whatever, but he was in top shape for the Benitez fight, and he got fucking clowned, he got schooled, and I still think I'm not going to compare and contrast the styles of Sanchez and Benitez. I just see similar boxing styles there, a lot of movement, a lot of quick punches, especially lead right hands, which was a good favoured shot of Sanchez. I just think he would do nothing to get on the cards. Anybody want to disagree with that?
Yeah, I think you could certainly make that case because of the fight. Like I say, I mean, I've watched as many of his fights as I can over the last couple of days. One thing that struck me that he did really well was his effectiveness between rounds 10 and 15. He ended the fights very strongly. He knew how to win, certainly points on scorecards that were very close after 8 or 9 rounds, and he knew how to take over in the late stages. I think if he fought someone like a Duran, not that Duran certainly didn't have the fitness, but I think he could have probably outthought someone like Duran over 15 rounds.
Yeah. I just put it this way, if you look at, obviously the pressure that Gomez put on Sanchez is completely different to the pressure that, if we're taking the Duran and the Leonard fight, which maybe probably totally unbeatable that night, could he put that style against Sanchez, Tommy? That Duran and the Leonard fight, could he put that style against Sanchez, and Sanchez being able to deal with it for 15 rounds?
Well, obviously, Leonard's a bigger guy, isn't he? So,
but Gomez is a bigger puncher.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were
talking about Sanchez, but just think about, you talk about the pressure and stuff like that. Gomez was the bigger puncher with Sanchez. So would you say that maybe Duran's a bigger puncher than Gomez?
Probably is, pound for pound, eh? He's went up, he's hurt middleweights and that, so you probably got to give Duran the edge there, but, I think a fight between them both at lightweight, it would really have to hurt Duran to beat him. When we saw Duran lose to De Jesus, obviously Duran was doing early in the fight. I don't think he really recovered. I don't think he was really recovered for that, but that was really the only time that he's really lost in the lightweight division. I'd have to just side with Duran in the fight, but Sanchez would definitely be in the fight. Yeah, there's no two ways about that.
Would they beat Duran?
No, I think Duran would have beat him lightweight.
Aye.
I
suppose you think about it as well. I suppose lightweight was.
It would have been a good fight, though. It's a good fight. But I think to beat Duran there, you really had to hurt him. You'd have to stop him in his tracks, and I'm not sure that Sanchez could really have,
Yeah, keep him off for like a full 15 rounds.
Yes.
As I say, lightweight was really Duran's office, really, wasn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
You see Alex's point. I mean, it's all subjective at the end of the day. With the guy come up from featherweight, be the same up at lightweight. I mean, Sanchez claimed before the Nelson fight, or after the Nelson fight, they wasn't feeling 100%. Maybe it was problems with the weight, I don't know. But I think with the talk of moving up to lightweight to face Aguero 6 months later or whatever it was, a few months later or whatever, but then I think that's probably an indictment that he's actually was going to move up in weight, and maybe he was a more natural, fully fledged lightweight. We just never know. We'll probably never get to know actually. So, but Paul and Alex, do you agree that Sanchez would have beat Duran, or Duran just too savvy, too schooled, and too good at lightweight?
I think I've seen way more of Duran than I have of Sanchez. I'm a massive Roberto Duran fan. At lightweight, he was an absolute force. I think either Duran, and Sanchez did take shots from the fights I've seen. He obviously did. He was willing to take a few to give a few back. I'd still edge Duran just because at 135 he was stunning. But I understand why people who are huge fans of Sanchez believe he would have won the fight. I'd always have to back Duran. I'd back him against a huge amount of people at 135.
Yeah, so would I, obviously. Alex, you might weigh in here, mate.
Yeah, I just got to agree with Paul. Really.
He had the frame. He definitely had the frame to go up in the weight, so Sanchez, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he was
thick thin.
Oh yeah, I mean he was. I mean he was still young, wasn't he? That's the whole point about him. He was only 23.
He's still going.
He would have grown more, built up a bit more, and he obviously would have
Man
strength would have made lightweight a bit better, I think. But again, we have to go. Personally, I have to go with the more proven fighter. Duran is the king of lightweight. Arguably, he is the best lightweight ever, and it's hard for however Sal Sanchez could have, how good he could have been. It's very difficult to say he could have moved up and beaten the king of lightweights.
Paul,
I don't think so.
I was going to say, how you said, maybe the Nelson fight, it's been revisioned by some people. It's maybe made it being maybe slightly better than what it actually is. You need to remember, Sanchez was actually voted as probably 1982. He was voted as the fighter of the year jointly with Sugar Ray Leonard. And Leonard was at that time had just beat Tommy Hearns. Now reverse the situation. What if it was Leonard that had died in the car accident?
Mm-hmm.
Would we still? Would we be saying that Leonard is probably obviously he's a top 5 great with some people? How would his career been revisited?
That's potentially again, wouldn't it?
Well, that's the really good question, because it's about if you get them at a certain point, if, at that point if Leonard had died, because we wouldn't have known what he would have done next, people would have considered him to be one of the best of all time. People already do, but maybe even higher regard than they do now. And I think that's what Sanchez had. Sanchez had good wins, but if he'd have had that one peak win at lightweight, I think it would have helped that argument in terms of him being... He won the fight of the year, or he was joint fight of the year, and he had some big wins, but because we didn't see him step through... I don't know if I agree that he'd have been able to go through the weights as well, because, he wasn't a huge guy. He wasn't a big, tall guy. For a featherweight, they all bore themselves down, but I don't know if he'd have gone up beyond 135. And there were enough good fights at 135 for him at the time, but I think he died that little bit too early for him to be considered. If he'd have gone on, like I said, at a couple of those, there wouldn't have even had to have been beaten one of the 4 kings. It would have just been another couple of solid wins at lightweight, and then he would have been in that conversation. Because he just died too quickly, didn't have enough fights, certainly in terms of didn't have enough world championship level fights. I think he'll never crack that.
He's like a mirage, though, eh? It's like you think you see him, then when you get there, he's gone. That's how quick it was. It's like he never existed to some people, because it was just his time was very, very short. I did notice one thing. He paid $300,000 for the Nelson fight, and he made something like $2 million over his career. It was all invested for him and stuff like that. Do you know when he died, his family got nothing of that money? Who was his promoter at the time?
Don King.
Yep. And his solicitor, his solicitor was actually his manager as well, so it sounds like they fucked him over, or fucked his family over, I should say. But anyways, basically, on the 12th of August at 3:30 in the morning, that is the 33rd anniversary since the passing of Salvador Sanchez, probably one of the greatest featherweights of all time. Certainly not the greatest, but certainly what he could have went on and achieved. would have been truly the stuff of greats, actually. So there we go. So R.I.P. to one of the greatest fighters of all time. Guys, next week we're running 1 hour 30. We'll just keep it very brief for the fight schedule for next week. A couple of fights. Carlos Cudras is back in action next Saturday against Dixon Flores. It's a kind of a gimme fight for WBC Super Flyweight title. I wish that guy would just rematch Sirasak quickly. But anyways, I suppose the other fight, Marco Hook faces, I think it's his mandatory challenge against Christoph Golache, and Antonio Tarver against Steve Cunningham. 12-round heavyweight action. Is this some sort of eliminator, guys? I really do hope Cunningham pulls this off. I've not seen any of Tarver's recent fights. I still think Cunningham's got enough
against that. God, what's his fucking name? He got done for.
Danny Green.
No.
Coyote, the African guy.
Coyote, yeah, and Coyote got done for drugs, didn't he? So.
No, it was him who got done for drugs, was it not?
Was it Tarver? Was it?
Yeah, sure. It was
Tarver, yeah.
For fuck's sake.
Yeah, that was a draw. It was a draw, wasn't it? Or was it? And I can't remember what happened with that. But Coyote had a big kick off after the fight.
He lost the fight. He lost the fight.
And then he said he'd never fight on. Cody wouldn't want to be involved. And Showtime said they'd never have him back on again. But I think of all the fights at heavyweight, Cunningham is. I like Cunningham, but he is beatable. And if Tarver's got anything left, then you've got to give him a good shout in this fight. But the PBC offerings this weekend are abysmal, and we are now getting into that series of really, really poor fights that they're putting on with Butte and the shows they've got coming the next couple of weeks.
Who's that guy that McQuillan's fighting against? Fake Chocolate. Who's he fighting? He's fighting
Dingo Dave.
Some scrub, you know. I mean, listen, we haven't really been absolutely negative this week. We usually get labelled as, but I mean, you can see people's love of the sport getting sorely tested with some of these fights. You really, really do. I mean, come on to fuck. I mean, I think what was that card last week? No, last week, the week before. That the PBC put on. I didn't even watch it.
It just shows how much we care about it. It's just whatever.
Can't even fucking remember it.
I mean, they need to really step the game up, because they started off with some good fights, and we all thought, okay, this might be interesting, and then we're now starting to see a lot of these very poor, where either one or two fights. I mean, the chief support for Butte is that Eladar Alvarez. I think I can't pronounce his name.
The guy from Italy.
He's good. But he's in with an absolute scrub. That's what I mean. This is the kind of fights that we're putting out, and because you think they've got so many channels and so many fighters, and they're spending lots of money. Someone said this is the problem with free TV, and I said it's not the money that's the issue, because the guys fighting on the A side are earning an absolute stack load. There's just no even matchups, and the money is certainly 85, in most cases 85-90% to the A side fighter. So that's why we aren't seeing any sort of competitiveness. And the only other fight that I wanted to mention is on this weekend. I get a lot of shit for my criticism of Roy Jones, but Roy Jones he's fighting at Foxwoods, and he's fighting a guy called Billy Bailey, who's 12-19. He's lost 14 of his last 16 fights, including getting smashed apart in 2 minutes by Artur Beterbiev. And it's an awful joke of a fight, and people will defend Jones all day long, but what on earth summarise any point to that fight?
I suppose the only good thing about next week, Tommy, is we're getting some cruiserweight action getting shown on American television.
So, that's a good thing. The more exposure that division gets, the better. It's definitely one of the best divisions out there, and if they can get all the fights made that can be made, it's going to be entertaining. There's some massive knockouts waiting to happen in that division.
It's old Huck's American debut as well, isn't it?
Yep.
With Heyman as well, as on the point of PBC and Heyman, I think that when did they start? It was April this year, wasn't it? Wasn't they first show? And since then, they've obviously gained loads of fighters. I think dozens of fighters. He signed up, and as we say, the fights have been getting progressively worse. It makes pretty much zero sense. Surely the fact that when he's signing more and more of these fighters in more and more divisions and really sort of stacking it up and monopolising it, we should be getting better fights, but that's really not been the case. It's just been getting worse and worse, and You know, how is it going to end? Are we finally going to see those fights next year? Are we really going to play this game of, you know, it'll be fine next month, you know, it'll be fine next year? They're going to really do it next year. I mean, we can't keep playing the waiting game. At some point, they've got to really deliver on the fights, and it's not happening.
What is this shit about free TV? I've never had a free TV in my fucking puff. And I've got a TV license as well. What the fuck, man?
It's the stupid hashtag on Twitter, isn't it? The PBC, it's free boxing for all, even though, you know...
I find it difficult because I'm a huge... Everyone knows my views on pay-per-view, and I'm a huge fan of the idea of getting boxing on lots of channels and on mainstream TV, so people don't have to pay extra to see it. But what I'm not a huge fan of, and what you're not willing to compromise, is shit fights. You can get served up shit for free, or you can watch good stuff and pay for it. And even I would agree that I'd rather pay for good than get some crap for free.
You know something, I'd actually pay for a pay-per-view if it had, like, solid fight, like a solid main event and a solid, maybe one undercard or two undercard fights. Solid fucking fights. None of this stacking a card and putting on your top names against fucking trash. That does nothing for me, man.
Oh. Well, like I said, you've got in America, in the space of a few weeks, American fans, it's different for us over here. We get it so good, but they're being asked to shell out $50 to watch Shane Mosley, Ricardo Mayorga 2.
No one's going to watch that, though. Fuck
yeah, but I know, but this is what they're being fed. So the $50 to watch that, or you can pay $75 and watch Floyd Mayweather, Andre Berto. Like I said, the pay-per-view model is not the way, but there has to be an alternative. And Heyman, who initially was offering a potentially good alternative when we saw Garcia-Peterson being made and Broner-Porter and a few other quite good fights, it swiftly turned into exactly what we thought. And that fight for Quillen is bordering, it's not quite as bad because at least he's the same division, but we're bordering Danny Garcia, Rod Salka. It's not that level, but we're not a million miles away. Yeah, and it's probably won't be too far until we see that.
I just wonder actually, just what you mentioned there, I mean, that Salka Garcia fight was a disgrace, but then I know much about this guy that Chocolate's fighting, but can you imagine if some of these guys were maybe seriously underprepared and they get fucking knocked out and something a serious injury happens?
Well, that's all.
I mean, there's James Toney there recently getting sanctioned to fucking fight and he's getting beat off novices. A guy with 9-3-1 record. How the fuck is you guys getting a licence?
Well, that's always the danger, and the thing is, people will be willing to give a licence for anything. America, if you can't get a licence in the big states, you'll go fight in the middle counties. And in England, with the Malta boxing licence, if you look at who they're licensing, it's like the who's who of banned from the board. Scott Harrison and Robin Deakin, all these guys have just been handed licences by the Malta. With boxing, it sadly is the way, but someone will always sanction someone. If you looked at Meldrick Taylor in his last few fights, I mean, he was being sanctioned by Alabama and all sorts, and he was clearly had brain damage. But someone for the money will always tick the box and say, yeah, he's okay to fight.
Oh, I was just going to sneeze there. Oh, fuck. So what were we talking about there? I was just ready to sneeze and it wouldn't come. I was like, oh, bastards. What are you talking about there, mate? Sorry.
And you seen that Showtime card on August the 28th? It's Trevor Bryan against Derek Rossi. That's the headline in the event. It's a 10-round tennis fight. Juan Cabrera against Mike Gavronsky, and that's the chief support in a 10-rounder. That's on Showtime.
I mean, the one with Anthony Durrell. I mean, that bill, it's just... They're not even like you're getting massive names in with nobodies. We're getting average fighters or ex-world champions in with nobodies. It seems to be the only person that seems to get matched quite hard is Adrian Broner. I don't know what he's done to upset Al Heyman.
He's fucking out, that's why, man. I really hope he's trying to cash out. I mean, see, I was talking about pay-per-views and stuff. See, on paper, see Mayweather, Canelo and Garcia Matisse, that was in the same card. On paper, that is a fucking good, solid pay-per-view. If you think it would maybe get another solid fight underneath that, you would maybe pay pay-per-view for it. You would probably pay £20 for it. You wouldn't pay $70 fucking dollars, but the Yanks have paid. No fucking way. Especially you put Ishii Smith and Carlos Molina on that card.
I don't know, and I'm not American, so I can never understand, but they must either do things very differently over there. I know they do like big house parties and stuff for it, but imagine being asked to pay the equivalent of, especially in the Mayweather-Pacquiao case, £60 to buy a fight. I mean, we moan about how much Sky costs, but that's pretty much your monthly Sky bill. I find it incredible, and American fans just seem to put up with it. And then in America, they sit around asking themselves, "Oh, why isn't boxing very popular? Why is it on sports websites? It's in the other category." And it's because they're not being given the option to watch. Or if you want to watch a good fight, I mean, Golovkin and Mu is going to be a fantastic fight. No one's saying it won't be good value, but you're going to be paying $60 to watch that fight. We'll get it for free more than likely, but think of all the people that would want to watch that fight. And Heyman's model is to get those fights onto terrestrial, but it doesn't work. And we've also shown the worst thing with this Mayweather-Berto situation is that they dangled the carrot of CBS and then decided, oh, actually, no, we want to make money, more money. Let's stick it on pay-per-view. It's the greed, and some people are better at hiding the greed than others. And I mean, in the UK, we're going to get a pay-per-view at the end of this year. We're going to get Klitschko, Tyson Fury. It'll be pay-per-view in the UK, but it'll be on, well, not free-to-air, but it'll be on satellite in Germany, the Ukraine, and in America. We'll be the only country that's paying for it. And there's not a single person that can make a legitimate case why that should be pay-per-view. But it will be.
Did you hate that fight?
Well, it's not. I don't.
You don't hate it. You just want to see Klitschko knock him out.
I just want Klitschko to show that this isn't competitive and that Tyson Fury's done very well to get to this level. He's managed to get himself into this fight, and Klitschko will win. But this is no more routine of defence. This will be built up, but this is no more routine of defence than any of the other guys he's fought over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And the fact is that the fight, all Sky having to do is buy the international rights. They're not having to pay the money to get Klitschko over here. They're not having to, they're not broadcasting it themselves. They won't even be recording it themselves. So Sky's outlay is going to be expensive, but nothing like what even it would probably cost for a normal Saturday night show, for an arena show. And yet we're going to be charged 20 quid to watch it. And also, the thing that pisses me off is that Tyson Fury's been fighting on Box Nation, in front of small audiences on Channel 5. Sky haven't given a shit about him. And suddenly he's in a fight that can make them a bit of cash. And, we'll go to the press conference. Tyson Fury's brilliant, isn't he? And then what they'll do is they'll lump it on with the Kell Brook fight because they're struggling to get that thing sorted out. So they'll put Brook on it as a dual site pay-per-view. And they'll make people think they're getting really good value for money, when in actual fact, Brook should be on free TV. And there's no reason why we should be paying pay-per-view for Fury when no one else in the world is.
There we go. I think Tommy's yawning in the background there, so I think that's our cue to end the show, guys.
Sounds about right.
Sorry about the rant, Tommy, if that's
no worries. No worries. I think his Skype died or whatever anyway, it's just posted on Mixler. But anyway, I thank the panel, Tommy Allen, Adam Smith was on for a bit there, Paul Webb, Alex Morris, doing the technical stuff in the background there. I'd like to thank our caller Cameron for calling in. Apologies about yesterday's show not being on, but circumstances, I'm sure you can appreciate. We'll be back on Sunday, so enjoy your week, and we'll see you on Sunday. All the best. Cheers.